It's pretty easy to see how the first generation 4680 and the second generation are different. Though it's not very clear from the top, the change is very clear from the bottom. There is a little pop rivet on this, as you can see. If you scraped off this stuff, you could see a ball bearing under there. That's what the main vent does, if you will. They are joined together by a copper tab at the bottom, which also serves as an electrical link to the can. This one has some extra parts inside. For the Gen 2 version, they got rid of that and put in these little welds instead. We did notice that there are 3 of each type in the rooms we have, 2 of the 9-weld type and 1 of the other type. There is another type of cell with 12 welds per cell that is mixed in the battery pretty fairly. We are going to look at the cutting-edge battery technology inside the Tesla Cybertruck in today's show. Watch as Sandy Monroe and Tom, 2 of our experts, take apart the 4680 battery. You'll get to see firsthand the new ideas that are shaping the future of electric cars. We're going to talk about how the new 4680 battery is different from earlier generations in terms of its architecture, the addition of new materials, and the removal of others in order to improve performance and safety. We will have a thorough look at the battery's inner workings, including the innovative dry electrode process. Stay tuned as we go inside Tesla's newest electric wonder. Don't forget to sign up for Tesla Stock News to stay up to date on everything that's happening in the world of batteries and electric cars. Let's begin and find out what's inside these strong cells that power the Cybertruck. We're going to learn a lot about batteries today with Sandy Monroe and Tom. Tom is the only one wearing gloves that stands out. They're out. As the expert in charge today, Tom will take care of all the battery parts and stress how important it is to be careful around battery dust and dry chemicals, which you should never breathe in or eat. To protect against these possible dangers, they've improved their ventilation system to keep the air clean. These batteries are handled very little and are put back in a safe place right away after the show. This is a strong reminder to all of our users that they should not try this experiment at home. It needs to be handled by professionals and is not for the faint of heart or beginners. Dr. Tom, an expert, will start the discussion by going over the basics of batteries by talking about anodes, cathodes, and collectors. Besides that, he will look at the changes between the new 4680 battery model and the older one. Sandy took cells out of a Cybertruck battery and showed off a cell from the 2022 Model Y structure pack. The Cybertruck cell is still charged, which is unusual in the industry and shows how innovative their extraction process is. However, not all extracted cells are checked because of safety concerns, such as small leaks or dents from the extraction process. Because they care about safety and quality, only the cells that are in the best shape are chosen for electricity testing. This strict selection process shows how committed they are to both making battery technology better and keeping their team and customers safe. Sandy Monroe talks about a big change in the new generation battery's design. She focuses on how the metal tab that used to be at the bottom has been taken away. This tab used to be very important for connecting and making it easier for the electrical links to the battery can. This part has been taken away, which means the style is becoming simpler. Nowadays, small welds are used instead, and they do the same job. These welds not only keep the necessary electrical connections, but they also make the building more efficient by cutting down on the number of parts that need to be used. This decrease in the number of parts not only makes the manufacturing process easier, but it may also make the battery more reliable and last longer by reducing the number of places where it could fail. Welds can also make the battery pack use less energy overall because they lower the resistance in the electrical links compared to the bulkier copper tabs. This design improvement is part of Tesla's continued work to improve battery technology in their electric cars so that they can lower costs, make production more scalable, and make the batteries work better. By making these changes, Tesla keeps pushing the limits of battery technology, setting new standards for the electric car market in terms of energy density and efficiency. As they looked more closely, they saw that the weld patterns inside the batteries were not all the same. There are 9 welds in some rooms and 12 in others. This difference isn't just a small one. It's part of a larger design shift that could make the battery stronger and better at what it does. These welds are carefully put on through the end cap, centered on a ball bearing at the core, and then soldered directly to the cap. This gets rid of the need for the middle devices that were used in the first-generation batteries. This makes things easier, which cuts down on costs and the amount of parts needed. It also makes more room inside the cell, which could increase energy density, which is a key factor in how well the battery works. Tesla has made big claims about how energy density can be improved, and our experts can't wait to try these claims so that we can give you correct and confirmed information. They look more closely at how the cell is put together on the inside, especially the flower tab of the cathode, which gathers tabs from the jelly roll anode side. This new design makes it possible for a larger contact area, which lowers the risk of overheating and makes it possible for the cell to handle more power. Sandy talks about how the first and second generations of these jelly rolls were made and how the materials were used. One big change is that the second generation has less cobalt on the cathode side. This shows that efforts are still being made to improve battery materials so they work better and last longer. They are now mostly made of nickel. Before, a lot of manufactured graphite was used in Gen 1 cells, and similar materials may still be used in the current generation. Sandy Monroe and Tom wrap up their in-depth look by stressing how important the divider is to battery technology. When you look at it briefly, the separator might seem like an ordinary part, but it is very important for keeping the battery safe and working properly. The cathode and anode are the two most reactive parts of the battery. This thin layer, which is usually made of a porous polymer, is put between them in a smart way. The separator's main job is to keep the cathode and anode from touching each other directly, which could cause electrical sparks and catastrophic battery failures. Even though it's thin, it's designed to stand up to the battery's working stresses and stay intact for the life of the battery. Because the separator keeps these wires from touching, there is no chance of short circuits, which are not only dangerous but could also cause major problems or even fires. The divider also makes it easier for the ions inside the battery to move around, which is very important. It lets ions move through the electrolyte, a liquid that conducts electricity, from one side of the battery to the other. This movement of ions is very important when the battery is charging and discharging because it lets energy be stored and released. The porous nature of the separator makes it good at this job while still keeping the wires from touching each other. For that reason, this part not only helps the battery work electrically by letting ions flow, but it also protects the battery by keeping its reacting parts physically separate. Because it does two things, the separator is an important part of modern batteries that help keep them safe and efficient. This shows how important it is to the general structure of batteries. Sandy and Tom say again how important these new technologies are and how they could change the electric vehicle business. Their expert research continues to give useful information about how battery technology has changed over time, making sure that the audience is up to date on these important changes. Tom Monroe and Sandy Monroe continue their in-depth review on Monroe Live. This time, they talk about the separator inside the battery. Even though it looks a lot like earlier versions, our experts are carefully studying it to make sure there aren't any small changes. The electrolyte, which is also very important, is also being looked at. Even though they've been paying close attention, a full study has not yet been done to look for possible differences. When you look at the positive terminal, or cathode, it has a tab that looks like a dime and is topped with a rubberized gasket. It looks almost the same as older types. Sandy does say, though, that the part in the Cybertruck's battery looks a little more fragile at first glance. It has been hard to take out cells for testing without causing leaks or dents, but they are sure that they can do more testing now that they have proven their skills. Our experts talk about the basic physics of lithium-ion batteries and how they charge and discharge. During charging, ions are gathered at the anode, which is usually made of graphite. During discharge, the ions move back to the cathode and give power. This cycle is very important for the battery to work and last a long time. One important thing they learned from their research is that the anode of the new generation cells has silicon, which wasn't there in the Gen 1 models. This addition probably helps to raise the energy efficiency, which is a key factor in how well batteries work. There are some other differences being looked into that might slightly increase the energy density. The main focus is on proving the presence and effect of silicon, which is what the manufacturers have said might happen. Moving on to the metals that make up the battery, Sandy makes a good point about the lack of manganese. There are 3 parts of a battery that are usually checked for metals: manganese, cobalt, and nickel. Cobalt is mostly used to put out fires. Because there is no manganese in these batteries, they look a little different. They have nickel and cobalt in them. Cobalt has been used with nickel and cobalt for a long time because it helps stop fires, which makes batteries safer. Manganese isn't used in the new designs, which suggests a strategic decision that probably has something to do with the progress made in the dry electrode process. This process has been successfully used on both the cathode and anode in the newest cells. It is thought that this process improvement will make a big difference in the design and efficiency of the battery as a whole. Lastly, our experts look at the special safety features on the end cap of the battery that are meant to handle too much pressure. The cap has a metal support that pops up. It has rivet-like attachments, but what's more important is that it has two vents that let pressure out properly. A bigger part of the cap can come off in some situations, which is a backup vent function for tough situations. This dual vent system is an important part of the design that makes sure the machine is safe when it's under a lot of stress. We looked at how the new generation batteries are built and how they work. In particular, we looked at how getting rid of the copper tabs made the welds better and adding silicon to the anode made the energy density higher. We talked about the better design of the battery, including how less cobalt is used and manganese is left out. These changes are related to the progress made in the dry electrode process. We also talked about the dual air safety features that are meant to handle too much pressure and make sure operations are safe. Please let us know what you think about these changes. What do you think these changes will mean for the safety and efficiency of electric cars? Do you think that switching to a dry electrode process will change the way batteries are made in a big way? Please give this show a thumbs up if you thought it was interesting, and don't forget to subscribe to Tesla Stock News for more. Take care, and we'll see you in the next film.